After decades of struggling to maintain security in the increasingly lawless frontier, with only the handful of coastal defense ships provided to them by the Assembly Parliament, the people of southeastern Tantalus began to take matters into their own hands. Their earliest efforts saw the conversion of their Linford Island-class coastal defense ships into the stripped-down and more easily maintained Florencia Class Outrider, and eventually this evolved into constructing Florencia-class vessels from scratch to bolster their security forces. As these ad hoc shipbuilding practices became more innovative and sophisticated, and in the face of near-total neglect from the Assembly proper, it was only a matter of time before entirely new warship designs began to emerge from the region. At a length of 133 meters and a width of 75.93 meters, the sleek and deadly Indria Class Outrider is a very deliberate expansion on the design language of the Florencia class, which was itself a largely coincidental result of heavily streamlining an existing Centron warship. Reflecting an evolution of the increasingly characteristic Nyagandano frame, the twin-hulled chassis of the Indria class is extraordinarily lightweight for its size and presents an extremely small targeting profile from almost every angle, collectively resulting in a lethally quick and nimble vessel capable of seriously threatening much larger craft in combat. The Indria carries a crew of 74 militia partisans, and the ship can be maintained and outfitted using spare parts and ammunition available within the southeastern frontier and the Mauritian freehold, transcending the Florencia class's inherent dependency on assembly-manufactured components and coil gun ammunition. The Indria class is armed with 8 octuple-barreled rapid-fire swivel gun emplacements to provide extensive point defense and cut lightly armored warships to ribbons at close range. These weapons are supported by 12 outboard-mounted Rolton Arms Guild A6 blocker torpedoes, manufactured in the Mauritian freehold and purchased in large quantities for use by the Union militia. Though later Union warships would carry railguns for use against harder targets, the Indria's loadout is configured entirely for protecting itself and friendly vessels from missile attacks, while simultaneously carrying out aggressive close-range strafing runs against hostile craft. For actions necessitating the use of high-power electromagnetic weapons, the Indria typically relies on close partnership with Florencia-class vessels as part of the so-called Rangomo lockstep, where the Indria works to divert attempted counterattacks away from the Florencia, providing the smaller vessel with the best chance of inflicting terminal damage using her Bodkin lock coil guns. As the Indria features no boat bay or embarked planetary interface craft and cannot affect a landing on a planet's surface, deployments aboard the craft are often long and arduous, with few opportunities for shore leave. The interior of the craft is cramped and inelegant, dominated by pipeworks and machinery, with low headroom, high temperatures, stale, cheaply recycled air, and little space for comfort or privacy. Through the years of stalemate that defined much of the frontier war, the isolation and discomfort of life aboard a Union outrider, coupled with widespread malnutrition and fatigue, frequently led to psychological breakdowns and collapses in morale among militia crews. Numerous Indria-class vessels were reported missing following mutiny or mass desertion, or were quick to strike their colours and surrender for a chance to escape their ordeal. When fighting an action, the Indria class follows a combat doctrine more akin to that of a pirate ship than to any CDF warship. Outriders rely on wolfpack tactics, carefully laid ambushes, and high-speed hit-and-fade attacks to succeed. During the war, they would deliberately prey on the often rigid and formulaic tactics of academy-trained Centron captains to harry and outfox them, often with highly effective results. Outriders would also generally engage to disable rather than to destroy, working together to assemble joint boarding parties and salvage teams to seize enemy ships by force, capture their crews for ransom, or simply make off with huge supplies of appropriated food, cargo, and ammunition if the target vessel was too damaged to be redeployed into Union service. Across the Frontier War, the Indria class was by far the most ubiquitous and frequently commissioned warship in service with the Union, with its low-cost design and ease of construction allowing new ships of the class to leave the yards of Senjin Wharf or the Kadarin Dorai with surprising frequency, even in spite of the Union's general lack of advanced infrastructure in comparison to the Assembly. Particularly in the early war, the ships were frequently underestimated by Centran commanders, and the Union took maximum advantage of the shock value this paradigm created. Indria and Florencia class Outriders, deployed aggressively and in large numbers, were the driving force of the Tandil Rush, and responsible for much of the Union's momentum and success across the first few years of the war. The concept of the Outrider was so successful, in fact, that the vessels eventually inspired the Centrum Assembly to explore new avenues of shipbuilding that attempted to emulate them, ultimately leading to the Leander-class destroyer sloop and the aborted Huntress-class ambush corvette. A highly symbolic vessel that represents the Frontier Union's approach to warfare more than any other, the Indria Class Outrider was the most reliable tool in the Frontier's arsenal throughout their conflict with the Assembly, and the vessel's many wartime accomplishments speak for themselves. The Indria is a vessel built from subpar components at under-equipped shipyards and crewed by barely trained volunteers that nevertheless repeatedly humiliated the finest ships and crews of the Centran Defense Force, and persists to this day as a testament to the guileful cunning and relentless tenacity of the Frontier Union.